Wow, look at that right there. Almost a full party, all of them rocking headsets, all of them high level, against me, one other guy, and a bunch of randoms. I said at the beginning of this game, this does not look promising, but we'll see how it turned out. Anyway, I'm Zero, bringing you a game of domination here on Berlin Wall. This is one of the only games I played yesterday. I didn't make it online much, but I thought I'd at least try this game just to see how hard it was going up against a nearly full party these days. I had my try-hard class on this time. I had flak jacket and everything else, and that's part of the reason we did as good as we did in this game. Needless to say, if you read the title, they should be ashamed. Yeah, a group that big, high level, all communicating, competing against a bunch of randoms like us, they should be ashamed of how well we did in this game. Normally, I complain about my teammates when I get stuck with a bunch of randoms, because usually nobody has any clue of what to do, and everybody's just running all separate directions, but I have to admit, this is probably the best group of randoms that I have ever gotten with in any Call of Duty game, period. Everyone was just working together, even though we weren't really talking. A couple people had headsets, I could see them flashing, but I couldn't hear anything they were saying. I don't know if they could hear anything I was saying. I ended up just shutting my microphone off, and we just got everything to working almost flawlessly through this game, even though we were completely uncoordinated. I was very impressed with how well everything turned out. Today, though, I'm not really going to be talking about the gameplay all that much. Today, I'm going to be talking about something that I try to explain to a lot of my friends in real life, and I always try to share every once in a while, and that's about personal finance. For some reason, I've always just been pretty decent with money. I work with a lot of guys around my age and everything, and since we work at the same company, we always know each other's pay grades, and we pretty much always know how much we all make, and I never could figure out how these guys that I knew were making a lot more money than me and had less expenses than me were always broke. And eventually it just came down to just how you manage your money. And I came up with a plan on how to manage my money a long time ago, and it has worked so well over all these years. It's a really great way to build up credit, which building credit's important for saving money later in life, because you'll be able to get lower house payments, lower car payments, and everything else just due to the lowest interest rates that banks will give you. So I'm going to share my strategy for that. And even if you're older and you've been out on your own for a few years and you're kind of behind, it'll still work for you and it'll help you catch up and everything. I think within a few years of implementing this, I think within 5 years of doing this, I had my credit score up to well over 810. It was really high there for a while. I spaced a few payments, and then I bought a house, and all the credit stuff doing with that has lowered it a little bit, but it works pretty much flawlessly. So here's how I do it. The first thing is you need to find a bank or a credit union or something that will let you open 3 separate accounts. I prefer going with credit unions because they're just better for the community and everything. If you look up credit unions and banks on the internet, I'm sure you'll find why credit unions are more advantageous to the normal consumer than banks are. Basically, you're making yourself money and other people to bank their money rather than somebody on Wall Street is what it comes down to. So you need to find a bank or credit union that'll let you open 3 accounts. What you do is you open 2 checking accounts and 1 savings account. One of these checking accounts will be your expense account. The other checking account will be your allowance, and the savings account will just be your savings. If all possible, you want to have your paycheck auto-deposited into the accounts, just because the less you ever handle the money, the less chances there are of you messing around with it and taking out extra and just doing things with it. The more hands-off you can make this, the better off you are. So the first thing that you have to do is figure out what your monthly expenses are, like with your rent and your car payment and your utilities and everything like that. And you want to add a little bit of extra onto it just to make sure you have it covered every month. And you'll have to take into account how heating and cooling bills and things like that change. So I always try to base it off the absolute worst month of the year for me, expense-wise, which is usually January. That's usually when my electric bill is the highest because of the heating. And so that's the calculation I use for electric bill. And in the summer months, then that'll just mean I get a little bit of extra padding in my expense account and just ensures everything's a little bit better. So once you have all your monthly expenses figured out, you have part of your paycheck auto-deposited into your expense account. And basically that is enough to cover all your bills, plus a little bit extra. Once you have that done, basically every place now will let you sign up for auto payments, where they just automatically take it from your bank account. So, if all possible, get every single bill you have auto deducted. That way, the money comes out of your paycheck, goes to the account, pays all your bills, you never see it, you never have to worry about missing a payment, and you never touch any of the money. It's always there, everything's always taken care of. And that's the most important part. The second part is, you have to live. You have to treat yourself a little bit. And, yeah, there's going to be things that you need to buy that aren't going to be covered in your monthly expenses. So then, you take whatever you want to give yourself for an allowance, and you put that in your allowance account. Also, if your bank lets you have a debit card, I would suggest putting the debit card onto your allowance account, so that way you can buy everything like that. And for my allowance account, I count that as gas, food, clothes, household items like toilet paper and toothpaste and things like that, and just general entertainment stuff. I think when I was in my 20s, I was giving myself maybe a couple $100 a month or so for the allowance just to do that, and that was pretty much good enough. I wasn't living the high life or anything, but I was living and I was doing okay. Then, after this, anything that's left over from the paycheck, you just want to throw into your savings account. And the savings account is just something that you should completely ignore, never touch, never use any of the money in there, just forget it's there. They say, ideally, you want to have enough money saved up in a savings account to last you 6 months of your current lifestyle if you lost your job and all income today. And that's actually pretty hard to do, but if you do it for a few years, eventually you'll get to that point. And with all the payments taken care of and everything else, by this point you should have really good credit, you should have a nice, comfortable savings set up, and you should be pretty much financially free, which is the goal of everyone, really. And the only thing you really have to worry about is the balance on your allowance account. Make sure you don't overdraw that. And if you're doing that fine, then everything should work out. Every once in a while you will want to check the balance on your expense account, just because since you're putting extra in every month and giving it that buffer room, the balance on that is going to grow, and eventually there's going to be a surplus in there of money that's just sitting there doing nothing. And since most checking accounts won't give you any interest unless you keep a just obscenely huge minimum balance, it's better to just take that little extra money and move it over to your savings account every year or every 6 months or so when you get enough extra built up. And that's basically the only time you ever touch your savings or your expense account. And once you have it set up like that, life's a breeze. You never have to worry about monthly bills. Everything's paid on time. There's basically no worries other than just living off your allowance. And if you get a raise and you get things like that, you can give yourself more allowance and put more in savings or things like that. But as long as you stay on top of however much you owe in bills every month, and you always want to keep recalculating this every so often just to make sure that if your car payment's changed or you refinance something or your electric bill has upped a certain percentage, that you're still putting enough in. And basically, you're just home free and able to live comfortably without worrying about expenses month to month like everyone else does. I still have a couple now at this point that since I've changed some things around, that I can't have auto deducted, and that just always throws me. I keep forgetting to pay those. I keep getting nasty letters just because I've had everything auto-paid for so many years. It doesn't occur to me that I need to go to their office and write them a check. But for the most part, unless it's like your car payment or something like that, it's not going to hurt your credit. Which brings us to the next topic, which now is building credit. So, even though you're paying all your bills on time, like your car payment and your rent and things like that, your car payment's really going to be the only one that's going to be building your credit. You have to have stuff financed to build your credit. So now that you have everything taken care of, now it's time to start looking at credit cards. Overall, credit cards are a bad idea if you're trying to live off them, but if you're using it as a credit building tool, it's a pretty okay thing to do. And a lot of them, you can actually get cash back just for paying your bills, which is what I've done. I get a credit card that gives me 1% cash back on every purchase, so I use that every month and have all my bills that I can paid by that credit card just auto-charged to it every month. And then every month I go in and I pay off the balance in its entirety. And that way, you're building balance with a credit card, you're getting actual cash back for paying your bills, so you're getting, albeit a small percentage of cash back, you're still getting money back just for paying your bills. And if you ever have to, you can finance a little bit on it. And every so often it's a good idea just to leave a little bit of a balance on the credit card at the end of the month, just to show that you can leave a balance and then pay the balance off. And if you keep doing this for a couple years, your credit score is just going to go through the roof, because you have all your bills taken care of, you never miss payments, you have a credit card, you don't use the entire balance of your credit card, you pay it off promptly, every once in a while you carry a little bit of a balance on it, and all those things basically just show that you're an incredibly responsible adult, even though they don't know that you have all this automated and it's just doing it for you. So, basically, that's how you can easily manage your money, easily take care of your bills, build your credit score, and live a worry-free life. And it's worked for me for a number of years, and hopefully it'll work for other people too, because I'd rather see people keeping their money than giving it to banks any day. And it looks like I timed this commentary just right, because the game's just about over. And as you can see, they won by a very narrow margin, even though they had that huge organized team advantage on us, and we did fairly well. They also had the connection advantage on us too, I didn't notice that. But that's the game. Hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you find some of it useful for life. As always, thumbs up always help, and I think this one might be worth a favorite, just so you can have the information at hand. And until next time, peace yo!